What you're looking at right now is Pencil Plus. This is a Dodge Charger. As you probably know, I've used it plenty of times before. I just like the model. You can see when you zoom in that it doesn't look super usable. Like, it looks really cool. I love the thick to thin line weight changes. It looks a little bit splotchy. It really, I think, matches my style pretty well. But out of the box, it's just not something that I would use. And that's okay. We are going to use some tools in Clip Studio to make this match my style even more. And one part of it is this. This is the Lambert shader render. It's very, very simple, but this is what we're using as guides. So this is how we know where things are, windows, curves of the car, etc. You can see the Pencil Plus lines up exactly. That's just using a new perspective camera with a keyframe so that we always have the exact same, the same shot. And then I'm just looking around at the render of the surface shader, which is the colors or the base color. And I find that it comes out a little bit dark. So I duplicate it. I set the new one to add, and then I just merge those two layers together. I think this color looks much more pleasing. I'm not sure if it's more accurate, but it is more pleasing to me to look at. And then I just knock back the opacity of the Lambert or the clay render, possibly you may want to call it. And this way I can kind of see them together. And now I'm ready to work. So I start a new layer, or I add a new layer. I just call it ink so I can keep everything organized. And for a line that you're seeing right here on the side of the car, I'm rotating the canvas because just the natural movement of my wrist, it's just going to work better like this. And normally what you would do, or I would do, is I would just continually make this shape until I feel satisfied. And it might take 10, 20 times. It doesn't really matter. Just have your non-drawing hand on Control Z and just keep stroke, undo. And you could do that all over the car. And that's fine. You could do it like that. It would look probably more natural because it is, but it's just very, very time consuming, and I think it's sort of a hassle. So what you could do instead is use the figure tool, which is, well, I've rearranged my icons on the tool palette. You can make it however you want, but by default, it's going to show the straight line. But you have other options like the curve. And what you would do is you would draw from the start to the end, and then you would, with your pen down, you would just start moving it. So you would press down, you draw to the end, you'd keep your pen down, and then you would move it around until you like the shape. And then there's other ones like the polyline or the continuous curve. I don't find those to be super intuitive. I have a hard time with them because they don't have bezier handles. Honestly, Illustrator, I feel, is really, really great for this kind of work. You do have to go to another program, which is never fun. It's a little bit tedious to kind of pass things back and forth. But if you can just have one if you can have one session in Illustrator and then export it, I feel like it's worth it because it's such a good tool to work with for these kinds of man-made sort of shapes, these very smooth lines. So what I'm doing in this case is I'm using the curve tool. It's the one I really prefer. And I'm making two lines because I'm visualizing the thick to thin look of the line. And then you're going to see I'm going to go in and sort of hand fill in the gap to create that line. You can do that. You don't need to do it. But I find that when it's a really specific line that I want to look a certain way. It's just the way it's going to be. I'm interested in the result. So I go outside of I go outside of the line sometimes, and no worries. But this is the way that you can really get sort of a sculpted line that works and looks exactly the way you want it to look. So if it's worth it to you, I don't want to say I recommend it, but it's definitely something you can consider. And it's definitely going to give you like a specific, really, really tailored sort of line. So it's just something that you can do. And for a car, or possibly for like a building, or again, other man-made items, kitchen gadgets, ovens, whatever it is, I think this tool is so helpful. And as you can see here, you can also mix in some hand-drawn, with the stabilization of your pen all the way to the max. You can go slow, and you can just, you can get a pretty great line. I like to throw those in because it's faster, especially for shorter lines. I have a lot more control. It's a lot easier to make look good. And then there's also, this where you're kind of using a combination where you set the main line with the figure tool, and then you kind of go over it manually to add a little bit more personalized look, a little bit less mechanical. But at the same time, the Pencil Plus is mechanical. It's from a 3D model. So I think it matches. And really, it's just coming down to the aesthetics of it. So another thing is I erase some of this stuff. Sometimes what I get from Pencil Plus just doesn't work exactly. Everybody's got their own style. You can play with the settings, but at a certain point, I find the best solution is just to use Pencil Plus for sort of like the main shapes, the outlines, get you probably 75% of the way there, and then use some manual tools, whether it's in Photoshop or Illustrator or Clip Studio or whatever tool you use, to kind of go in and fine tune it to make it look like you want it to look. So Pencil Plus is amazing. I absolutely don't know what I would do without it, but it doesn't really do everything, and it doesn't know your style. So I like the way this looks. It's such a good starting point. And then I go in, as you see, and I'm just kind of adjusting it and editing it to make it really look like it matches the other things that I would draw. And for these long shapes, sometimes it's straight, but again, if you do this with a pen freehand, even with stabilization completely 100% turned up, it's going to be a lot of like trial and error of the strokes. And so I like to, again, do this, just draw out the line, sort of barely, in this case, barely, just slightly bend it. And then you can either, like I did on the top part of the window, draw it by hand, or you can do this where I like to just kind of do the start and the end, make those thicker. You can manually come in and add thicker sort of splotches to the middle. Like, it's totally up to you. Whatever your style is, you can find a way to make this actually work. So yeah, it still does take some time, but when you're talking about a car or some kind of maybe like a robot, something that's really mechanical and has a lot of specific curves or straight lines or details, I think it's worth taking your time and making it look as good as possible / your style. So this is like the windshield is a really long, specific curve, perhaps. I guess it's a curve. It's something that I would never want to draw freehand. Even if I zoomed out and I did like I did in the beginning with a freehand drawing, yeah, eventually I think I could make it look really good, but it would just be, I think it would probably take so many attempts, which you could knock out in like less than 10 minutes, but it would just be really annoying, I guess is the best way to say it. So with this technique, with this figure tool, you can really, again, just you take the figure tool, you draw from the start all the way to the end, and then you just kind of bend it to what you think works. And it's such a quick way to get perfect lines, relatively perfect. I mean, whatever you consider perfect, but I mean, this is the way I would do it. And I think it works super great. And I only just found out about this tool a few days ago. And that's why I'm making this video, is so I can share it with you, anybody who's using Clip Studio, because again, I've used Illustrator for this kind of thing in the past, and you would draw out a pen line. You'd have all the little nodes for, the Bezier curve. You can delete them and really adjust the lines exactly the way you want. I still think, apples to oranges or whatever, I think Illustrator is a far superior tool to do this kind of work with. But if you don't have Illustrator, or you don't want to pass files back and forth between different programs, then I think this is a pretty strong solution for this kind of work. And I'm just going in now and I'm just kind of seeing what it might look like if I were to add my own personal style sort of detail lines to it. I'm not really going much further into this. I'm just doing it just for fun. But yeah, that's just kind of the way that you would build a car, inks for a car, using this figure tool to tremendously help. And I just wanted to show it in this video. Hopefully you guys, if you've never used it, you might want to use it now going forward. And I just wanted to let you know that it exists, and this is a pretty good example of how it would be used. So I'm just going to cut off the rest of this video. I think it's just me goofing around, making my standard sort of crazy lines, which isn't related to the figure tool. So I'm going to cut it off, but if you like what you see, please like the video with a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, please subscribe. As I mentioned, I will be making a lot more tutorials. They're mostly Clip Studio and Maya, Pencil Plus type of things, but comic book stuff. And that's it. I'll talk to you guys next time. See you later. Take care. Bye.